So this is Val Campbell, and I'm in the Seattle area, and this is the Saturday Morning Show. And I have been in the business industry for many, many years, about 40 years of business experience here in the Pacific Northwest. In fact, globally, I've been involved in business projects as far away as the Middle East. Just about my background a little bit. The largest business project that I worked on is that I put together an outline startup proposal for a $15 billion business project in the Middle East a number of years ago. I was on a kind of a consulting basis. And so, I've done a lot of different things. I've been involved in everything from building bird houses, outhouses, and dog houses to, as I said, that particular project was an outline for building an entire city in the Middle East, 20,000 buildings, a desalination plant, a port facility, and an oil refinery. So, that's a big spread, a lot of experience. And out of all of that, I have chosen a specific business model as the one for myself and my family to base on. So there's a little bit of background on me. Brad, why don't you introduce yourself, my friend?
Well, I'm not as ambitious as Val or international, but I graduated from college with a degree in business. I worked in retail grocery for 9.5 years. I left there. I ended up being self-employed as an independent contractor in the property casualty insurance industry for 18 years. I found out real quick that what I learned in college had no correlation, was absolutely no help. And I don't say this to be derisive to what I was doing as an entrepreneur. What I was doing as an entrepreneur, I had no preparation for going to college. So I ended up doing that. I was mildly successful in insurance. I was basically one of those people, I ran out of capital and I just didn't want to continue anymore. So I jumped out of there, spent about a 6-month stint selling mortgages. This was just before the crash of 2008. I could kind of see the handwriting on the wall that things aren't going to be going too good here. So I ended up taking a management position, Fortune 50 company for a little over a year. And then I ended up in sales, outside sales with a local custom manufacturer. And I'm so glad I was able to leave that job not quite a year and a half ago, February of last year. And I too, like Val, I'm excited about what I'm doing now because it really gives me the opportunity, one, to get back in the entrepreneurial game, which is really where my head and heart are, and to get out of that job mold. Guys, I'm not a big fan of job. I'm a lesser fan of bosses and all that. If you want to get out of that, we've got a solution for you. Tune in and listen to us. Okay. Thanks for joining.
As you said that, I'm reminded of the phrase timing, and its sister phrase, location, yeah. Right? It's all in timing and location. As we often do on the Saturday Morning Show, we reflect on the previous week and what's going on in business things. And wow, what a week it has been. The turmoil, which is built up, I think, a lot from, so people know tuning in here in the United States, the cities are on fire. There's tremendous unrest and frustration. And this is, I think, developed from a number of different directions. First off, everybody being locked up for a couple of months doesn't help. The pressure and the tension, the frustration, the financial burden. And of course, then there's a racial and social problem that developed because of some abuse that a guy in Minneapolis suffered, and his ultimate death at the hands of some police officers, and that just ignited what was a dry forest, right? I mean, just crazy. Yeah. So you have that, plus you have the end, mostly, or the beginning of the end, let's say, of the COVID lockdown. And you've got a phenomenal resurgence in the stock market and economic numbers, and all of this coming together in the same week. It's crazy, right, Brad?
Yeah, the market's starting to peak up a little bit. It's amazing how so much it's driven by these issues, the uncertainty of institutional investors on which way it's going to go. But I've seen it pick up, which is good news, especially if you have some money in the market. A little bit closer to home, I'm just going to kind of do this as a humorous but real example. Why are people looking? Well, you can see today, I wore my Las Vegas t-shirt, and this was a little bit by accident, but I did my video yesterday on Facebook Live. But Las Vegas was reopening as of Thursday, I believe. It's going to remain to be seen how many people want to go to Vegas as a destination resort, touch dice that other people have held, stay in hotel rooms, go to attend the shows and all that. But guys, here's the thing. This was a big number. Las Vegas has a 30% unemployment rate. I think that translates to the state itself, since it's not all that populous outside of Vegas, but that's 1 out of 3 people. Okay, we've got like 1 out of 4 people in the US that don't have any money for emergencies, but in Vegas, 1 out of 3 people are employed. What are you going to do? That we're still, I think, in dire straits economically for the average person. Yeah, if you're in a good situation, yeah, the market's picking back up. But what does the average person do, Val? Because I'm looking at these numbers, and I looked at them hard and deep this week, and I'm not sure what people are going to do.
It's a difficult conversation. So let's talk about the numbers. About 42 million people were unemployed. Are you there? Can you hear me? I hear you moving around. No, you went mute for some reason. Anyway, I'll keep going, and you can work on that. 42 million people unemployed in the United States during this lockdown and crisis. 7.5 million people. There you go.
Hearing me again?
Yep, you're good. 7.5 million people.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, 7.5 million
technical
businesses.
difficulty here.
You're live. Nope, you just turned it off again. Just leave it. Don't touch. Can you hear me? I don't know what's going on with Brad. 7.5 million businesses under threat of closure. Many of them will not reopen. And we have still and yet a stock market that is racing. The Dow Jones average hit 27,000. Standard & Poor's 500 is at record highs, and the NASDAQ is very, very high. So this is an expression of anticipation. The markets are always an expression of confidence by the institutions and the businesses. So what this is telling us is that we've had this tremendous problem, and it was, I'm going to say it was artificial. It was not an institutional problem. It wasn't a banking structure problem. It wasn't a war per se. It was a virus, and viruses have a characteristic curve. And the interesting part of this is that everybody was told the curve was going to be like this, and we did flatten the curve, but as it turns out that there's a lot of conflicting information about this, because some places didn't lock down, some places did, and the numbers are approximately the same. And so the curve was much flatter than anticipated. So there's a lot of concern about that, but I want to go back to your statement, because I think it is a extremely important statement, Brad, or question. He said, people are in a dire situation. I've had people contacting me saying, I am in crisis financially. My family's in crisis. I need money now. You're talking about building a business, but I need money now. And one of the things that I want to emphasize, and this is hard, this is tough love here. The condition we are in today in our life is the result, the direct result of decisions and actions we started 3 to 5 years ago. So whatever we're going through today, 3 to 5 years ago was when we should have put action into place so that we weren't experiencing this today. What do you think about that, Brad?
Yeah, it's tough because I hear it, the outreach I get from people in Africa. They're saying, hey, I don't have any food for me or my family. And you're going, wow. But you look at some of these areas, and again, poverty exists. I don't want to downplay it. I want to be careful what I say. But a lot of it is a mindset. It's a lack of understanding how to create a sustainable or a growing economic base for yourself. You're dependent upon the agriculture. If that goes down due to the weather factors, whatever, all of a sudden you don't have any food, you don't have any income. But yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Val. This is a problem that people are, if you're tied to an agrarian society, which a lot of these places in Africa apparently are based there, you're you're kind of up and down as far as your economic. When the economy's shut down and all your activities pretty much shut down, you're effectively shut down too.
Well, and one of the issues, let's take Africa. Africa and Asia are two different, very different situations. In fact, Asia's got multiple different cultures and situations. So does Africa to a certain degree, but Asia is much more dramatic that way. And I was talking to a guy yesterday in a major Asian nation, and he said the problem here is that people have this attitude of, yeah, good enough is good enough. And then when something happens, I mean, they're just used because the climate's warm. They don't have to worry about freezing in the winter. There's relative abundance of food available locally, although the dense population centers cause distribution issues, and they can't just go out and pick a banana or something like that, like maybe the people in the provinces can. But he said the country, there's just the culture here is kind of like, well, I'm doing okay today. That's what I'm expecting. They don't tend to plan a lot for 3 to 5 years from now. The challenge, one of the biggest challenges in Africa, in my opinion, and this is, boy, we're really boiling this down to generalizations and simplicities here. I get that, okay? But one of the big problems facing Africa right now is they have a very, very well-educated population, a lot of people with college degrees, a lot of people that are very knowledgeable, and there's just not enough jobs. And so you've got the best and the brightest in many cases, and I'm not making this up, you can go do the research, the best and the brightest are leaving Nigeria, they're leaving Kenya, and they're going to the United States or Canada or Europe to go to work in industry. And so now people in Africa are looking at this and saying, wait a minute, what is with the future of Africa if our best and our brightest can't even get a job here after they graduate from college? And yet there are the jobs that are there, many of them in the if you look at the skyline of African cities, you'd think it was a picture of a skyline in the United States city. They're major metropolitan areas, completely sophisticated, very high tech. There's just not enough to support such a well-educated population. So it's very, very complex. But, again, 3 to 5 years ago, what decision didn't you make 3 to 5 years ago? And perhaps more importantly, what decision are you not making today to make your life and your family's life better and safe and enduring 3 to 5 years from now? Because this is not the last disaster we're going to have. This isn't the last time we're going to have social unrest and cities on fire.
And Val, I say this, and I'm going to repeat it again. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
Yeah, I know you're hurting now, but if you don't change anything now, where are you going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? If nothing changes, nothing changes. You got to change what you're doing now. If what you're doing now isn't working, don't think it's going to change. And, it's almost a definition of insanity, expecting different results by doing the same thing. I don't mean that to be degrading or demeaning, but let's just be real here. Again, we're here to provide some training. We're going to jump into some leadership stuff here eventually.
Why don't we just continue to expand on this a little bit, and then let's close out with the leadership stuff, okay?
Okay, that's cool.
So as we're on subject here. So the issue, one of the huge issues, and boy, you can look around the world at everything that's going on right now, and just if people would just step back and look at this and ask themselves the question: how much of this is because of the paradigm that people have, the filter and the view that they have of the world? How much of this is a reflection of that? How much of the struggle all the way on all sides, everybody involved, how much of that is the view they have of the world and the way that they respond from that viewpoint? And I think everybody would say, well, yeah, it's pretty much all the way around. It's the police officer, it's the people on the street, it's the people suffering in their jobs, and it's the people that don't have jobs. All of that comes from the response that they have because of the way they see the world. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, we're very blessed in the U.S. I got to say, because what I know of what's happening in Africa and that those countries, they're shut down. Their government isn't sending out, $1,200 subsidy checks. They don't even have the money to do that. That's not a reality. So the people that are pretty much left on their own, their government can't help them out, and they're not, and they're just left. What do we do? So we need to, number one, I think, be thankful and humble enough and be, again, just thankful that we have what we have here. But yeah, a lot of it's mindset, and people are looking, their paradigm, their mindset is not trained to look for, how do I plan for the future? And I'll say, submit, even a lot of people in the US are not planning to do that either. It's just day to day or week to week or month to month substance. And when something goes wrong, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So how do we change that? How do we change that mindset?
Well, part of it is that we have a show like this where we're actually talking about it, and people are talking a lot about these issues. And let's approach one right now, that the whole COVID-19 situation has made people step back and really reevaluate. And I just want to share, I'm involved in other industry, involved in other business, and I see all across the board, businesses and industry and education systems, everything, everybody is stepping back right now and reevaluating the way that they believed it should be. And right now you have businesses that are reevaluating office space because people are working from home. Maybe we don't need all this office space. I mean, the institution of education has taken a hit because
and they may still.
Yes, because what I'm saying is they believe that everybody has to sit in a classroom and everybody has to do this, and we have to sell these big tuitions and all of this. And now students have been working from home, and you've got students complaining, wait a minute, I paid for all this tuition and I'm at home on a laptop doing this stuff. Am I going to get tuition rebate? And why do I even need to do this? So let's talk about that for a second. Brad, before I launch into this, do you want to?
Well, we talked about this a couple months ago, that the paradigm of how business is going to be done is being changed by COVID-19. And we're seeing these play out right now. We're not seeing it in its fullness, but we are seeing how business, industry, education, universities, and they're getting hammered too. The way, and if college sports like college football doesn't pick back up, which I'm hoping it does because I'm a big college football fan, there's a major, like a $4 billion revenue hit, and there's only a handful or two handfuls of schools that will have enough reserve to handle that. So they're so tied into these other, you want to talk about revenue streams with college sports, i.e. football being the number one, but education's institutions, I think, and I've been reading a fair amount of what's happened with schools, they're in like almost a panic mode. They don't know what to do. How do we handle this? Because their whole paradigm has changed. So I think my message, and Val, I'll turn it back over to you, is, guys, things are going to be happening how I think we do business or how we interact. One, we're on Zoom. This isn't new to us. We didn't just start on Zoom last month because we heard about it. We already knew about it. But businesses, how they interact, how they do, people working from home, the increase in productivity. They don't have to travel. They don't get interrupted by all the stuff you get interrupted with. And then the educational system, universities and schools, are seeing the paradigm of how stuff is done is changing.
We've seen for a number of years the discussion of the problem with education, how bad the education system is. You could probably look at a lot of what's going around us and view that that a lot of that is contributed by just a bad education system. But specifically, the focus has been on student debt, the cost of a college education, and the value you get out of that. Because it's a huge statistic. I should have looked this up, I'm sorry, but I want to say it's 40 to 60% of the people that graduate from college after years of hard work and study and sacrifice and money spent on tuition and everything else don't even get a job in what they have a degree in. So they have a degree, maybe having a degree somehow helped them qualify for a job if it was a college degree needed situation. But what they're doing has nothing to do with what they studied in college.
Well, and Val,
go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about this a month ago, and I'm going to bring this up again because Seattle is a pretty economically diverse but viable, profitable market. We talked about this like 2 months ago or so. People that make 100,000 a year in Seattle, San Francisco, of course, but New York, but other cities can't afford to buy homes or renting because of school debt, student debt. It's huge.
Well, and it's compounded with a lot of things, but literally, and I had a big eye opener because I when I looked that up and found that if your family is not making about $200,000 a year in Seattle, you're sliding backwards. You can't afford to live in town and a lot of things. So I'll tell you how this specific subject really erupted for me within the last couple of days. Was I was having this discussion with a business leader in Asia, and he has a sphere of influence of about 700 young people that are either in college or getting ready to come into college, and he is looking for a way to provide these people with an opportunity so they can earn money for college. And as I'm talking to him about this, now remember, this is his paradigm: getting a college education. This is the circumstance, right? So people look at this like, well, you've got to get a college education. You've got to have a degree. Now I'm going to take one side trip here. I have a friend, a gal. She's Russian. Russians are really, really, I mean, college education is like the holy grail. It's a religion. If you don't have a degree, you aren't going to make it. Her son is a very, very talented IT guy, right? Being recruited by Google to come to work for them on one of their advanced teams, $250,000 a year plus salary, bonuses, all this kind of stuff in there. And they're telling her son, come work for us. We're 5 years ahead developing what the college is going to be teaching. They won't even be teaching what we're doing until 5 or 6 years from now, because we're developing it. Be on the leading edge and make all this money. She's freaking out because her son won't get a college degree. And I told her, I said, he can get his college degree anytime, okay? You don't have that kind of an opportunity to develop financial success and freedom that might not come along in another few years for him, because he's going to be systematized by that point, by the university. They want somebody who's fresh and thinking out of the box. So with that in mind, I'm talking to this guy who is trying to figure out some way that these college students can get an education, can pay for an education. So here's the deal. And I've got these numbers written down here someplace, but bear with me. In that country, it's going to cost them for a 4-year college degree, it's going to cost them about $50,000. A lot less there than it is here. Yeah. But they're going to graduate. And I asked him, I said, it's 4 years of college, and it's just like college here. It's hard work, right? It's really hard to have any kind of meaningful employment outside of going to school and studying. Plus the fact that if you get a job in the Philippines or in a Southeast Asian nation, you're making $5 a day. Even a full-time job is $5 to $10 a day. It just isn't there. So I asked him, I said, so tell me, so it's going to cost $50,000, $60,000 in the exchange rate to get a college degree there, 4 years at best. He said, yes. How much money are they going to make coming out of that? And then remember, they're financing a lot of this too, and they don't have the financing we have. They have to go to loan sharks to get money to go to, and their family is working and doing everything they can to get these people through school, supporting them, feeding them, whatever. Mm-hmm. How much money are they going to make? He says, a pretty good job here, starting job for a college graduate is about $500 or $600 a month. And I stepped back and I said, okay, let's compare, right? I said, this is an awesome opportunity to compare two things. And you can translate this into the United States also. Let's just say that this young student, remember his paradigm. I got to figure out how this guy can build a business so he can go to college. I'm sorry. That is really twisted logic. That is logic that's driven by a paradigm, not by metrics, not by reality. I said, okay, let's say this young person is going to spend 3 years working to develop a business, and he's going to work just as hard as he would going to college. He's going to really focus, really bear down on that.
Mhm.
Studying, working, perfecting his craft for 3 years. In our opportunity, I find it really, really hard to imagine that that person's not going to be making $100,000 a year.
Mhm.
So let's just say $60,000 to $100,000 a year income and growing. You've laid a platform, and it might be a lot more than that. I'm just saying that you've got that if they work it like they're going to school or they're have a job.
Like a job, take it seriously.
Just
Yeah.
take it
Yeah.
seriously. This is your business. Now at that point, you're roughly comparable to where you'd be graduating from college. On one hand, you've spent all this money on tuition and books and transportation and all of that. Okay, now you get to start with a $300 to $600 a month job, working in some IT center or something like that, or being a teacher in a school, or being an engineer or an architect. Now you're going to compare that to what you've got on the other side. You have an income stream that is enduring. It's working. You can build it. Now the question comes, one of two things. Now you've got a question. You've compared these two opportunities. You can see that the income production isn't even close. Now you have a decision. Would I still like to go to school and get my degree? Totally, perfectly fine to do that. Now you have an income stream that your family doesn't have to borrow money at a 20% per month interest rate. What's what the loan sharks are charging in Asia. You don't have to borrow money or your family support you to do that. You've got an income stream. You can just go to whatever school you want.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Like a better deal to me.
Or maybe the person looks at this and says, gee, what I really wanted was better life and better income. It wasn't the paper from the college. Maybe if I really want to learn about European history, I'm just going to go to Europe and live there for a month and learn about European history. And if I want to study, if I want to learn to speak Japanese, maybe I'll just move to Japan for a year and learn to speak Japanese, or whatever you want to study. Yeah. You can do it. You have options on how to do this. And so what I suggested to him, I said, step back and take a look, my friend, and decide if what you want to suggest for these young people is the solution or the system. Are you suggesting a system that doesn't really provide the solution they want? And what is driving the decision to go to school? Is it just because everybody says you got to go to school? Everybody says you've got to get a good degree or somehow you're not a worthy person? And I submit this to you. If that person doesn't go to school and actually is serious and builds a business, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily for everybody, because you've got to have a little bit of self-discipline. You know, you're going to have some external discipline going to school because they'll kick you out if you don't study. Here, you're going to actually have to be an adult. Sorry, I know that's harsh. You're actually going to have to be an adult. You're going to have to learn. That's part of why it takes 3 years. It really only takes 6 to 12 months. But I'm going to give you 3 years because you might have to learn how to operate in the adult world. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I know that's harsh, but that's reality.
Yep.
Now, what are we really seriously trying to get by having our education? And I'm not saying education's bad. I'm just saying, why are you getting an education? If it's to develop a better life and a better income stream, I think we've got this flipped. I think we've got this reversed. Get that done first, then go back and get your education, because now you're more mature and you actually might know what you actually want to get an education for.
True. Okay. So from some personal experience, okay, I got my degree in business administration from Central Washington University. Glad I had the educational experience. I think I had the benefit of working, having a job in retail grocery while I did it, so it gave me kind of something to relate it to. But what is interesting, I'll just say in the macro sense, really schooling here is designed to help you get a job in the corporate environment. The programs are designed to help you go to work for a corporation, not to be self-employed and not to start your own business. But what was interesting to me, and this is taking us back 35, 36, 37 years. I was making more money at Safeway, and I was working full time when I started applying with my college degree to look at other jobs. They're paying $500 to $600 less, and I'm scratching my head going, huh? So I got to stay in retail grocery. I was getting burned out where I was at, but it's like, so I'm going to quit this job that's paying pretty good. I know what to do, and I got to go start somewhere else making $500 to $600 a month less. That doesn't, guys. There's a disconnect, the paradigm between college education getting paid, and I think we definitely see it in the U.S. here. It's being sold and marketed as a commodity. You need to go to school because basically everybody else is. You need a college degree to get. Well, I'm not pushing it, slamming education, but you can self-educate a lot if you're dedicated to it. You get to it. I think Earl Nightingale said you can be an expert in anything if you spend an hour a day for 5 years. Guys, okay, see, that's not going to university. But I think this whole bill of goods, Val, that we're sold that this education is so important. And 70, 80 years ago, yeah, it was true. But nowadays, what's the value of a college degree? And you're like saying in some of these foreign countries, man, you're in debt. You're already in debt here in the U.S. How much money are you going to be making to pay that off? You're going to be living in a one-room apartment like somebody I know working for a major software cloud company who's got you by the throat because you need that job to pay and you're already in debt.
So I agree, Brad, and I think the question comes down to this. Look, if you want to be an engineer, you're gonna have to go to college. You want to be a doctor, you gotta have that education.
Hopefully,
there's numbers of different things that I don't want to see when I go in for brain surgery. I don't want to see self-educated on the wall, right?
Or he spent a month watching YouTube videos, and now he's ready to go.
Yeah,
okay.
no. So there's a point and a place.
Yeah.
But I think we know that the vast majority of people going through college are getting degrees in things that don't actually probably require college, okay? Or they don't require you to pay all of that money right out of high school and go to college and then get out into the workforce and not find out that there's meaningful employment in what you spent all that time and money studying. And so my message and what I'm trying to convey to people is, maybe we should look at this a different way. Maybe we should look at this and say, hey, why don't you build an income stream? If you're absolutely got to be a doctor, oh, fine. I'm not talking to that person. Although maybe build an income stream for 3 years, because the typical doctor doesn't finish paying off his medical school until he's 50 years old. Think about that. How much money
I owe, so off to work I go.
How much money you'd save by just spending a couple of years developing an income stream that's going to pay for your education and your life afterwards, so that you can actually do that thing that you love doing and not have to worry about supporting your family from it. That's another guy I was talking to said, boy, he really wants to have a farm. He's an African, awesome guy, really good friend. And he says, man, his dream is to have a farm. I said, well, let me tell you something. I've owned a farm. I've worked a farm. That's a lousy way to make money. It is really risky. It's really tough. And you are up and down and it's not consistent. I said, build our business, get an income stream, and then go farm for fun. That's what I'm doing. That's what I do. I love farming. I just don't want to have to make my wife and my family supported that way. Okay. So